Hey coaches, welcome back for episode 2 on our middle school air raid webinar series. Today we're going to be going over formations and the certain skill sets within those formations that we want to focus on. Real quickly before we get started, just again, want to make sure you guys know about a few things. Obviously, I want you to connect with me, so subscribe down below. Make sure you get all the most current content that's coming out. Also, we want you to like and of course, like and comment below. So please give me a like real quick, make sure that I'm on the right track here. And if you have any questions, comments, or whatever, comment below now as well. Second thing I want to make sure I tell you about is the whistle.com. So we are using whistle.com to supplement everything that we're doing here on this webinar series. So if you go to whistle.com, you will find different groups, middle school air raid group that you can go talk about anything that you've heard on these videos. There is a mesh group where we have 18 versions of mesh from people out there, other coaches posting their versions of mesh, 17 versions of Y corner. And we're working on stick right now. So guys, we're all helping each other grow by collaborating on whistle.com, and that's whistle without the I. Okay, let's get into it without further ado. So again, today you're at formations and skill types. We are just getting started here on this journey, so appreciate you guys being here. And so with that, let me just jump over to huddle. And you can see this is literally all the formations we use. So you'll see a couple 2x2, a couple 3x1, and then a few 2-back sets. Green and blue, I'll get into it. That's kind of in the field. And then our heavy back formation, more out of a pistol look, is this brown and black. So obviously you can see colors kind of denote the 2-back sets, okay? So before we get into the formations, let's talk about the personnel, okay? And I'm going to do it out of our open set because that's kind of our standard base formation, okay? So we kind of look at receivers in 2 ways, guys. Inside and outside. And if you have a big enough coaching staff and you can coach up these receivers coaches, we actually do split it up, outside receiver coaches and inside receivers in practice. So outside receivers, typically in a perfect world, and I know guys, we get the talent we get, so very rarely do we get enough talent to set these positions up perfectly. But I'm going to tell you in a perfect world what I think and what I've heard should be kind of the way you set this up, and then you guys can take it from there and figure it out. But essentially, we're playing basketball on grass anyway, fellas. So either way, you're going to be just fine. So the outside receivers typically are maybe a little taller, great possession receivers, got great hands. They are going to go do some jump balls. They're going to run go routes. They're going to come inside and run snags. So there's a lot of needing a strong possession receiver with good hands. Of the two, L is probably your fastest outside receiver that you can kind of take the top off the defense. R is kind of, in a perfect world, our best all-around receiver, okay? Maybe not the fastest, but obviously we need him to be fast, have great hands. We can put this guy in motion. We will put him in motion and put him on the jet sweep, our motion jet sweep. So he's a versatile player, probably your best all-around true receiver. This Y position, this is one of those positions, especially in air raid, where some people have a slot Y and some people have a big Y. And some people, like myself, if you saw my film from a couple years ago, I had a hybrid Y that could do both. He was big enough to put his hand in the dirt, but he didn't have to come out when we put him in the slot. So really the main attribute that I want you guys to focus on with Y is that he just has a good feel for the game, feel for finding open grass. He knows when to sit and when to keep going. He understands how to find pockets of grass. So I'd say probably the most cerebral and just natural feel receiver that you have out there would be my suggestion for Y. And then the H is, for lack of a better term, kind of our twitchiest receiver. So true slot receiver, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker type, that's for sure. We actually bring our H in the backfield, and I'll show you with this 2-back set. bring him back into the backfield and let him run the ball too. So, it could be if you have two types of back and F is your downhill back, this might be maybe your scat back or more of a half back, but can get into the slot and play. And then I just alluded that this F is for featured back, not for fullback. But we do want a downhill mentality runner. Now, obviously, youth football, we're all about putting our best athlete at running back, and that rings true here. While he might not get as many true carries and handoffs, he will get a ton of touches because he is as involved in the passing game from a receiver standpoint as any of the receivers. Okay, so that's your perfect skill sets here. Quarterback, if you can throw 25 yards downfield, 20 to 25 yards downfield, and you are smart and you maybe care a little bit more about the strategy of football, that's all we need. I'd much rather have a smart kid that is kind of bought in and interested in the game enough to kind of sit down and talk football with you, and he can throw 15 to 20 yards. I'd rather have that guy than a guy that can throw 100 yards but doesn't get the game, right? This is as basic as a spread offense as we can make it, but there still does need to be some level of acumen. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but for the most part, you can find a guy or two that can throw 20 to 25 yards and has a good acumen. These travel baseball players have lived in that world for a long time. Travel basketball players, for that matter. So you'll be able to find it. Okay, so let's go through the formations. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, let's start with the top formation. Okay, 2 by 2. We have our ace formation on the left and open formation on the right. Okay, so there's our two 2 by 2 sets. That means 2 receivers left and 2 receivers right. Okay, now as you can see in ace, we always have in ace our Y attached to the line, and he's got his hand in the dirt. So we do that for certain situations. Sometimes he can get lost on Y shallow or in Y corner. A lot of times in youth football, if they're attached to the line of scrimmage, people just kind of forget about him and assume he's blocking. And obviously, if we want to bring in an extra blocker, that's a great way to do it as well. Okay, so real quick, as we go back here, I'm going to switch back to this view. There's a couple rules that I just want to make sure everyone knows. This is how we teach it. If you want to align the same way, this is how we teach it to the kids, and I will just teach it to you real quickly, okay? So number 1, Y is always on the line of scrimmage, okay? Period, end of story. If Y is on the line of scrimmage and on your side of the ball, like this he is to the R, then you need to back up and get off the line of scrimmage. And we tell our receivers that are off the line of scrimmage, your front foot should be perfectly aligned with the back foot of the closest receiver that's on the line with you. So this R's front foot should be aligned with this Y's back foot, like evenly, okay? So Y is always on the ball. So no matter where he goes, if he comes to your side, you need to be off the ball. H is always off the ball, okay? So if Y is always on, H is always off, and you'll be able to see how that works, okay? So if you can remember those things, then everything else will take care of themselves. L is our traditional X in a normal, setup. He can or cannot be off the ball, but he's always on the left side. That's why we put the L there, always on the left. R is always on the right, so they're never going to flip-flop. They know that they're always running their routes on that side of the field, and they are actually going to be experts at running their routes from that position. Okay, so it really is actually super helpful. Okay, so with those rules in mind, again, ace is our 2 by 2 set with the tight end attached. Y is our 2 by 2 set with the tight end open. I'm sorry, open is our tight end, is our 2 by 2 set with the Y opened off from the line. So that's what open means. You'll even hear it in pro style offenses. They'll call the Y detaching as open, okay? And don't worry about the running backs right now, guys. It'll be clear as we go through these plays, and the kids actually pick it up pretty innately where they're supposed to be standing, depending on which side we're running or what concept we're running. It really sets where the F should be in these formations. Okay, so that's our two 2 by 2 sets. Our 3 by 1 set let's just start with one of them so we can see it. So early and late. So as you can see, early and late, 3 by 1. So 3 receivers to the one side or another. Let's give you guys a little clearer view here, okay? So early, if you hear that hard R, that's our 3 receiver set to the right. So there's some rules that we actually went over, right? So Y is always on the line of scrimmage and H is always off. In our 3 by 1 set, they're going to travel together. So here's another rule. We've already got the rule set, Y on the ball, H off. That still applies here. Since the Y is on this side, both of these receivers are off, okay? But the H, since he travels with our 3 by 1 set, this is early to the right. This is late to the left. You can see that the H is always inside the Y in these formations, okay? So notice that he's 1 yard in and 1 yard back from the Y. So they kind of travel together in these 3 by 1 sets. Now, we always tell our receivers, if they're alone, they're on the line of scrimmage by rule. One person has to be on the line of scrimmage and no more than one on either side. So if you're all alone, L, H was over there and open. When H leaves that side, L needs to make sure he's on the line of scrimmage, okay? And R is off right now. Typically, you can tell an F. He's usually opposite side of the 3 by 1 set, of the 3 receiver set. So if you look in late, which is our 3 by 1 to the left, so late left, that's a good way for the kids to learn it. Since the Y came over here, now the L had to step back. The H is always inside, so between the Y and the lineman, again, 1 yard back and 1 yard in. R, since he's all alone, has to be on the line, and F has flipped over to the other side because of the 3 receivers being on the left. All right, so let's get back. Let's get into our 2-back set, and this is the 2-back set we'll run in the middle of the field. So this is green. So you hear that R again. So now, just like so what we had was, just so you guys can see it, green is just our open set, but pulling our slot receiver back here, okay? So green tells our Y which side to line up on. It tells our H to come back in the backfield, and you could have a personnel change for H if you don't have a hybrid guy that can run the ball or block. You can use that as a personnel change, but again, since the Y is on the right, the R has to step back. Since the L is by himself, he's on the line of scrimmage. We have our running backs, and I didn't say this, I apologize, lining up behind our tackles. We want to give them time because we run a lot of counter. So we got to give time to the linemen to pull. Okay, so that is green, which means blue with the L. The blue is telling the Y to go left now. So the H and the F stay on their sides. They don't flip. Only the Y does, okay? So now the Y is on the left because we're in blue. It's our 2 backs to the left. Y to the left, that means L needs to back off and R needs to step up on the line of scrimmage, okay? Pretty simple, okay? So that's our 2-back set in the middle of the field. And really those 3 sets are really what we use most of the game, okay? Our 2 by 2 sets, our early and late 3 by 1 sets, and our green and blue. And we can run all of our plays, guys, out of all of these formations, and we'll get into the plays soon. I know you're excited too, I am too. But honestly, we run our 12 plays out of these 3 sets, and it looks like we have a million plays in our playbook. Now, when we get into goal line and heavy situations, we do have a 2-back look for that, and it looks a little bit more like pistol because we do bring up our quarterback to about 3 yards or so, put the H behind him, and the F is offset. So basically, this is just old school power football. We got the Y attached, and this is kind of like one of those goal line sets where we just want to run power straight downhill and get behind these blockers. We'll have some boots off of this as well since it's a goal line package, but brown and black. Black with the L is left, and brown with the R is right. Okay, pretty simple. Whatever side the Y is on, that receiver needs to back up. Okay. All right. So hopefully that was pretty simple for you. We do have our playbook, like I said, on whistle.com. On the top tab, it says file sharing. The playbook that I just showed you, that I just used to do this, is on there. So go for it. go in, go check it out, and we will get with you guys on the next one. Again, guys, go to Whistle, get the playbooks, go look at these groups. We have middle school air raid group, so we can have these conversations. The Facebook page, Middle School Air Raid, is blowing up. So if you're on Facebook, go to that group. There's a lot of great conversations, but really we want to use Whistle as a place where coaches can go learn about mesh and see 18 ways to run it right then and there, right off the bat. And then you guys can collaborate and talk about all these different ways to run it. You could ask the guys that posted it why they'd run it this way and what their point is. So whistle.com, guys, without the I, go there. And yeah, keep spreading the love, fellas. We got to make sure our coaching community understands how this all works, can understand that they can throw the ball, even though they grew up and only know running the ball. You could just watch a few videos and educate yourself, and we can get these numbers, these participation numbers, back where they're supposed to be with these kids loving to play football again in the spread format. So keep it up, guys. I'll see you on the next one.